Each week, as we approach the weekend, we tell people, have a good Shabbos. Hope you have a good Shabbos. I just called to wish you a good Shabbos. But 1 week a year, this week, we wish people a great Shabbos. Because the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos HaGadol, the Great Shabbos. What's so great about it? In most cases, it's right before Pesach, and we're sitting eating our challah out on the porch, on the front lawn, anywhere but inside. But it all goes back to the time when we left Egypt more than 3,300 years ago. On the 10th of Nisan of that year, Hashem told Moshe that the Jews should tie a lamb to their beds. The lamb, the Egyptian deity, the god they worshipped, was now going to be tied by the Jewish people in front of their Egyptian tormentors to their beds. And this took tremendous self-sacrifice and mesiras nefesh to do, because if you saw your god tied to a bed, you'd likely get upset, and they knew the Egyptians would be upset with them. And yet, they did it. 4 days later, it was time to do the Korban Pesach, the sacrificial lamb to be offered for the first time in history. And the Midrash tells us something very interesting. One of the halachos of Korban Pesach is that an uncircumcised man may not eat from it. V'chol orel lo yochal bo. The Torah tells us that in order to eat from the Korban Pesach, a person had to have a bris milah. The Jews, over the course of their sojourn in Egypt, had ceased the practice of bris milah on the whole. Moshe told them, you must circumcise yourselves so that you can partake of the Korban Pesach. And the Jews refused. The Midrash relates that when Moshe slaughtered, he shechted his Korban Pesach and began preparing it, Hashem took the fragrance of Gan Eden, of paradise, and infused it into the Korban, making everyone want to have some. And because of that, they agreed to have the circumcision done. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky asks the question, how is it possible that 4 days earlier, on the 10th of Nisan, they risked their lives to tie the Egyptian god to their beds? Yet 4 days later, when it was a question of circumcision, which was not life-threatening, though uncomfortable and unpleasant, they refused to do it. And God had to resort to forcing their hand, as it were, through the fragrance of Gan Eden. Rabbi Yaakov says you have to have a little bit of a backdrop and a background of what was going on in Egypt. When the Jews began their slavery, one tribe did not participate. That was the Shevet Levi, the tribe of the Levites. Their job was to be the teachers in Klal Yisrael. Moshe grew up in the palace, and he told Paro, you are going to kill the slaves. If you make them work every single day, they will be unable to perform properly. So Paro said, okay, pick a day, and I will give them that day off. The day Moshe chose was Shabbos. Says Rabbi Yaakov, what did they do on Shabbos? He said that was the day they went back to the Beis HaMedrash, the place they went, the day they went to Shir, they went to learn. They sat in front of the Levites, and they gained their emunah, they gained their bitachon. They heard about how Hashem was going to save them and take them out of Mitzrayim. He was going to remember them. The 10th of Nisan, when the Jews tied the sheep to their beds, was a Shabbos. It was a day they were infused with spiritual energy and enthusiasm. They were able to overcome the fear of the Egyptians, the Omed al Hanisoyon, to rise to the challenge and tie the sheep to their beds. 4 days later, when it came time for the Korban Pesach, it was Wednesday. Wednesday was a regular day of the week. There was nothing specially infused about it. There was nothing specially holy about it. Therefore, the Jews were unable to maintain their their enthusiasm, and they weren't able to even have the bris milah. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, that's why we refer to it as Shabbos HaGadol. It was not the fact that they tied the sheep to their beds that we are recalling. We are recalling why they had the strength to do it, why they had the strength to stand up for the principles of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and do the impossible. Because Shabbos was the time for them to get that spiritual charge. Every Shabbos, we have that opportunity. We're not working, we're not on the phone, we're not on Facebook or Instagram. We are focused on Hashem, our families, ourselves, our own neshamos, our souls. And this is the gift of the Shabbos. It's what makes not just the Shabbos great, but all of us great. It is this ability to reflect and recognize that our place on earth is about much more than just work. It's about working on ourselves. It's about improving our relationships with people and with Hashem. That is the Shabbos of Shabbos HaGadol. The greatness inherent in Shabbos is part of the greatness that is inherent in each of us. So each week, when you wish people have a good Shabbos, remember that with a little planning, a little learning, a little reflection, you can make that good Shabbos into a great one. Have a great Shabbos.